their monopoly on wisdom. Once this trust is placed in the hands of a powerful leader, this neocon argues that certain tools are permissible to use. For instance, quote, this is what Ledeen says, quote, lying is central to the survival of nations and to the success of great enterprises. Because if our enemies can count on the reliability of everything you say, your vulnerability is enormously increased, close quote. What about the effects of lying on one's own people? Who cares if a leader can fool the enemy? Does calling it strategic deception make lying morally justifiable? Ledeen and Machiavelli argue that it does, as long as the survivability of the state is at stake. Preserving state is their goal, even if personal liberty of all individuals has to be suspended or canceled. Ledeen makes it clear that war is necessary to establish national boundaries, because that's the way it's always been done. Who needs progress of the human race? He explains, quote, look at the map of the world. National boundaries have not been drawn by peaceful men leading lives of spiritual contemplation. National boundaries have been established by war, and national character has been shaped by struggle, most often bloody struggle, close quote. Yes, but who is to lead the charge and decide which borders we are to fight for? What about the borders 6,000 miles away, unrelated to our own contiguous borders and our own national security? Stating a relative truism regarding the frequency of war throughout history should hardly be the moral justification for expanding the concept of war to settle man's disputes. How can one call this progress? Machiavelli, Ledeen, and the neocons recognize a need to generate a religious zeal for promoting the state. This, he claims, is especially necessary when force is used to promote an agenda. It's been true throughout history and remains true today. Each side of major conflicts invoke God's approval. Our side refers to a crusade, theirs to a holy jihad. Too many wars boil down to their God against our God. It seems this principle is more a cynical effort to gain approval from the masses, especially those most likely to be killed, for the sake of the war promoters on both sides who have power, prestige, and wealth at stake. Ledeen explains why God must always be on the side of the advocates of war. Quote, without fear of God, no state can last long, for the dread of eternal damnation keeps men in line, causes them to honor their promises, and inspires them to risk their lives for the common good. Close quote. It seems dying for the common good has gained a higher moral status than eternal salvation of one's soul. He goes on to say, quote, without fear of punishment, men will not obey laws that force them to act contrary to their passions. Without fear of arms, the state cannot enforce the laws. To this end, Machiavelli wants leaders to make the state spectacular. It's of interest to note that some large Christian denominations have joined the neoconservatives in promoting preemptive war, while completely ignoring the Christian doctrine of a just war. The neocons saw and openly welcomed their support. I'd like someone to glean anything from what the founders said or placed in the Constitution that agrees with this now professed doctrine of a spectacular state, promoted by those who now have so much influence on our policies here at home and abroad. Ledeen argues that this religious element, this fear of God, is needed for discipline of those who may be hesitant to sacrifice their lives for the good of the spectacular state. He explains in eerie terms, quote, dying for one's country doesn't come naturally. Modern armies raised from the populace must be inspired, motivated, indoctrinated. Religion is central to the military enterprise, for men are more likely to risk their lives if they believe they will be rewarded forever after for serving their country, close quote. This is an admonition that might just as well have been given by Osama bin Laden in rallying his troops to sacrifice their lives to kill the invading infidels, as by our intellectuals